Hello. In this small tutorial, I'm gonna explain a little bit about like movement, transitions, rhythms. That's my idea. I don't know if I can cover everything. And I'm using my new Mac. It's still M1. There might be some hiccups, so that's a little bit annoying because I'm going to work with transitions or like transformations, moving images. But let's see. Okay, so yeah, like this. This is a little bit annoying. So I want to move something. So let's start with shape. Nothing, not too big. And I like to correct aspect ratio. Something like this, roughly square. And then normal way of moving would be, for example, scroll X with a second parameter that makes linear translation. This is not that interesting, so I think people would use, for example, our function with time. Well, this one is still the same. It's too fast. So, like sine function. So this, because of the sine function, gives a little bit of like articulation in movement. And another way of doing it would be with these parameters in the array. Just faster. And probably you already know with the chaining with the smooth function, it makes like transition between these three values. So that's kind of a standard way of doing it, and I think that's totally fine. It's just like my preference is to work with that was a hiccup with modulate, which I explained in the old tutorial about modulation. And modulate is like normally like what you need to do is like with noise and like modify images, but you could also move images. For example, because I use noise, I would use that. What if you pixelate it into 1 by 1, which means that the whole image would be the same color? And what happens here is that it's a little bit slow, but the shape keeps its shape, and it's moving, in this case, diagonally, because noise is RGB has same color, so it would just translate in one direction. I could also select the color 1 0, and in this case it's moving. It's really confusing that now we're talking about color, but what happens is the translation in X direction. So if I change it to 0 1, then it's a vertical direction, because modulate function takes red and green and use those two colors to move in XY directions. And normally, because normally we don't pixelate, so every pixel has different translations, and that's why it becomes like something mad. But then if you do pixelate 1 then all the pixels have same translation, so in the end it's just like moving the shape, the whole shape. So why is this interesting? You could also do something with our function, but let's keep doing this. So for example, if you have OSC, that's also possible. Ooh, it's really fast. Maybe slow it down a bit, something like this. And oh, by the way, noise has values from -1 to 1, but OSC is from 0 to 1. So I would do bright S 0, 0.5, so that now it's it was 0 to 1, but the brightness, its color is changed to minus 0.1 to 0.1. It's very confusing that, again, we're working with a color, but what it produces is the shift in position. But that's what modulate does. You could also modulate scale. And now it's like, this is a bit like processing sketch, right? With a scale, the x direction is the same, so it's like 1, and then comma, sine something to change. And OSC is basically a sine function, so it's like just modulating the scale with sine function. And so this is the catch, like I did in the other video, is that if you decide to pixelate not 1, 1, but like 2, 1, and then you suddenly have different scaling in different positions. So maybe I'll strip the shape a little bit, so you see the effect better, and pixelate maybe 8, maybe even more scaling, and I want to keep the edge sharp. Okay, and I want a bit more drastic effect. Maybe like I can start playing with these numbers. Yeah, so now you see that it's like scaling, but each part of the image have different scaling. So that's why it's like dividing into columns. I mean, that's what Pixelate is doing basically. If you just want to have a debug view of this, just do it like out. So this is what is fed into the modulate scale or modulate. It's kind of, well, this itself is interesting, I think. But you can do something like this, and let's go back to this one. Oh wow, that's very interesting. Yeah, like something like this is possible. But I want to go back to this shape. Maybe just pixelate 1, 1 again. Or if you're lazy, you could also not pixelate and just use OSC that has like low frequency, which in itself it's not that interesting as OSC, but then if you see like this, then you can see that it's like translation, but kind of distorted translation. And now what becomes interesting is like chaining them. So I have this first modulation that goes vertically. Now I want to translate it horizontally, maybe. This is not that interesting because, well, I decide what's interesting and not interesting. You decide for your project. Maybe this is interesting for you, but to me it's not that interesting because now it's like going diagonally. I would change the frequency of the oscillation for X and Y, and now it's kind of like, I think it's kind of visage shape. It's like infinity sign that is joining. Or I could also decide to shift the phase. This is a bit nerdy, but you could also do something like this to shift the phase. Or like, is it pi divided by 2? Yes. Maybe I would do pixelate just to keep the effect clearer. And now you can see that actually, well, because of the aspect ratio, it's kind of like making an oval, but if it's like a square canvas, then actually the shape is going in a circle. Of course, you can do this like without writing this whole bunch of code. You can do scroll. Maybe I do scroll X and Y. Math, sine, and time. Divided by, I don't know, 4 or something. By the way, there's a scroll function without X or Y, which you can have X and Y parameters all together. But I'll just make this for the simplicity. And this is something similar. Now the coefficient for the time is different, so you see this time, the speed different, but yeah, something like this. Now it has the same direction, rotational direction, as what I did with modulate. And of course, this is so much clearer, so much more easier to read. So if you're confused, just stick to this. But if you are interested in exploring whateverness, this could be also very interesting to have it in your pocket. And now I can play with like something like this, or like if you add something like this, frequency, and then, okay, maybe this is not that interesting. But anyways, what I want to say is this, and then, wait, what do I do now? Maybe I just do extraction only, and then what I want to add is modulate rotate. The modulate rotate is like one of the tricky ones that is really hard to use, and the way I do it is same as the one below. So the idea is pixelate. Let's see what's gonna happen. Maybe just keep this simple. Okay. So now the rotation is happening with the value of the color of OC. I know it's very confusing. And I'll add brightness so that it rotates like I don't know how to say it. You do math pi as a rotation, like how to say multiplier of the rotation. Radian, now it becomes minus 0.5 times math pi until, well, pi divided by 2. So maybe like times 4, then it does full circle, or full rotation is this, obviously. I thought something different. So that's that. Maybe what's more interesting is chain them, but in a different order. So now it's doing something very different. I don't know what it is, but it's like a lissage shape again. Oh, maybe because of this value for the phase shift. I don't know. Whatever. It does something interesting. And so the way you work with this rotation, maybe I disable this part. No. So I set up like some kind of articulation, and this is still kind of dull. It's a type of easing. I mean, linear is also a type of easing. This is sine easing or cosine, whatever you want to say. The way you would do it in the color domain is, for example, saturate. So if it's more saturated, then it's going to just go crazy. Doesn't really change. I don't know why. I thought it would be saturated. Oh no, because it's saturation is different. It's if it's color, of course, it's a contrast. Oops. You see, like it has a little bit more like harsh easing, and if you do like contrast 4, maybe the rotation is too much. and even more, but it rotates a lot. I don't know why. I don't exactly know the way it's calculating contrast. Yeah, I think it's kind of like capped somehow. But the idea is like you have to work with the color in order to change the rotation. For example, what else can be? I mean, also you can do like multiply with this itself. So now it's like this pause is a bit longer. Or you can add something and create like different movements. Like different frequency. But maybe a bit less. And now it's becoming a little bit more unpredictable. So let's do something with this. So that's kind of the theoretical part. And since we have this, I want to improvise a little bit. Obviously with this, something you would think is doing feedback. This, and then the shape. R? No, R. And then do this. So now it's just like filling the background. And I would say multiply with some kind of color. So now the block changes its color. I'll put this back in. So now it's a bit like I don't know why processing sketch, because it feels like that. And I mean, you could easily do this, right? You could just translate the shape and not to redraw it, the background. But what would be interesting here is I would add a layer of shape. Maybe shape 2 is like becomes like a bar almost. So if I do this and they say color, no, I need transparency and I want color black. So what happens is there is this black bar in the background, but behind this colored thing. So if you see that when it's crossing, you can see the top shape is on the black bar. The black bar is also hiding the O0 buffer, what's in the feedback. And I would like to add some motion. Maybe this should be a little bit thinner. And so it's like almost invisible. And then I would say, hey, modulate, rotate, C, 0.5, 1, mass, pi. What does it do now? So now the background bar thingy is actually moving. It's like wiping, sweeping the residue in the background. And what else can I do? And also, let's keep it a little bit cleaner. Modulate with, again with OC. 0.25, 1. Maybe this one I have to pixelate 1, 1. And brightness 1.5. Something like this. I want to make like vertical direction. I mean, it also does horizontal, and with rotation maybe it's different. So maybe I do this, as I said in before. So now it's like erasing what's in the background with a little bit unpredictable movement. So with this combination, you could see that it's everything is a bit more fluid. And of course, like, not of course, but it's interesting that when it goes through, because of the frame rate, it's not like completely wiping everything, but when it's faster, you see that these like a slit almost. And of course, I like modulate with my favorite feedback. Now the code is kind of hidden. Okay, so let me see, 6.0.5 modulated by noise, maybe 3 subgradient 1 and then 101, something like that. I remember this by heart almost. Wait, why didn't it work? Oh, it's this one. Okay, this is the too harsh. Let's move 3 maybe. And here as well, I would add brightness. Yeah, so that's actually interesting. Maybe I can hide the code for a moment. I like it. It's not something that I expected from the beginning, but I kind of like the effect, and I like that it's not overly saturated, the image, because of this wiping thing in the background that makes a little bit of a contrast of the colors and the black part. So I actually quite like this. I really improvised and didn't really prepare anything. So if you like the video, please like. If you find it useful, please like the video, and if you have comments, questions, feel free to write in the comment section, and please subscribe to the channel. And what else? Yeah, if I have time, or if I want to escape from the other project, I will probably film these more tutorials in the future. So please stay in touch. Thank you for watching.